Officers, today a good reminder that every traffic stop can devolve in just an instant. Hi everyone, welcome to today's badge cam lesson here at Active Self Protection. I'm your host, John Correa.
And I'm your co-host, Mike Williver. Today's video coming to us from Milwaukee, Wisconsin.
The Storm Hunter WX weather app is free to download and use and provides you with warning of severe weather even before the National Weather Services issue alerts. This advanced weather app is an important tool for awareness of severe weather that I use every day. Download and use it totally free without in-app purchases on iOS or Android at the link below.
Officers have arrived on scene because a bystander has called dispatch for a man who is passed out in the driver's seat of his car. He's pulled over and is parked right underneath the no parking sign and is slumped over in his seat. The guy went and knocked on the door. The dude wouldn't answer, so he's called police for a wellness check. The officer is going to respond. Let's listen in to the badge cam and the dash cam.
$32.60. Is medical responding? Sir!
He is responding, so I'll call over to the
Yeah. I'm Officer Davis, Milwaukee Police.
Yeah.
What's going on here? What's that?
Hmm?
What's going on? What'd you take?
Huh?
What'd you take?
I was drinking.
You were what?
Drinking? Hmm?
Drinking?
Yeah.
What were you drinking?
Alcohol.
Oh, what type of alcohol?
Fishy.
$32.60. Is there a bikeman available?
This one at 27
10-4. What about 3220? Hey, Cunha, can you call? Cunha, can you call me, please? All right, sir. Did you take any drugs today? Mm-hmm. You just drinking? Mm-hmm. Okay. Do you need any medical attention? Yeah. Medical is coming, though. They're going to just tell them that you don't want their help if you don't need it. But, yeah, someone called about you, said that you weren't getting up. Yeah. Then when I got here, you were just sitting here. You have an ID on you?
No.
You don't? Okay. 10-4. Can you do me a favor? Can you stop out the car, please?
Mm-hmm. So the car?
Where's the St. Paul? Service on 2101 West St. Paul, vehicle 25 found on St. Paul.
Notify District 1.
3218, has a respond.
You guys GPS that squad car so we can order it in?
Anybody in here?
Dude ran off into the neighborhood, was found with a bunch of meth in him, and he actually shot the officer with this piece of crap pistol. The officer was shot twice, will make a full recovery, left the hospital a day and a half later, even though he was shot in the arm and in the side, and that one went all the way to his sternum. He will make a full recovery, but he's not back to work yet. The perp here was just recently sentenced to 40 years in prison for this incident. Hey, I have a couple of times here on the Badge Cams invited you to the national conference. Mike, you've been to several. They're worthwhile, man.
It's fantastic. I think the number one selling point, other than the fantastic cause that it's for, the value for money. I don't think there's another training program this condensed with this many great instructors. You should really, really consider going.
Only place you get 3 great days of training for making a donation to charity. Hit the link in the description and join us. You know, Mike, on initial approach, I really felt like this officer was really officer friendly. I felt like he was pretty chill. He was really cool. He didn't badge heavy the guy. I thought he did a really excellent job.
Yeah, I agree. You know, I'm always the one saying that there's nothing wrong with being kind and polite to people. There's no reason to come in badge heavy. In most cases, sometimes you have to because circumstances dictate that, but this wasn't one of those times up until he started shooting, of course. The approach, it's tough to say from these badge cams exactly, you know, where he positioned himself, but it looks fine to me. It looks like a pretty standard approach to someone we suspect is either having a medical emergency or is intoxicated and passed out behind the wheel. This is a very common call, John. This is something that happens every weekend night in most major cities and a lot of weekend nights in smaller towns. Someone has too much to drink, and if, you know, a few blocks down the road they decided, wait a minute, I probably shouldn't be driving, good for you, pull over and stop. Like I said, give yourself permission to stop doing what you're doing and change your behavior. Maybe that's what this guy did. Who knows? But I don't think he was high on meth, because being high on meth does not equal passing out behind the wheel. I think this officer's approach and his initial contact was just fine, spot on.
Yeah, one pro tip for private citizens. God forbid this is you, don't drink and drive. But also, if you have to do this, get out of the driver's seat and go over to the passenger seat, because otherwise you're still in control of the motor vehicle and can still be charged with DUI. Now, as soon as he gets the guy out of the car, things go haywire, right? So literally as soon as the guy gets out, he pulls a gun on the officer, and the officer's got to decide in this moment whether he's going to dive in and try to stuff that draw or whether he's going to get away. And we can't really see here from the dash cam, but I really feel like, you know, you've got to make that decision in a split second, and if you're too far to stuff that draw, you better do your best to try to find some cover.
Yeah, and whatever you do, don't listen to certain people on the internet talking about gun takeaways, because that's not, those techniques are not great. But there are techniques you can train, not necessarily take the gun away, but at least to neutralize it, to pin an arm against something so the gun can't be used. But it's a decision you have to make very, very quickly. And again, I don't know what the mind frame this officer was in, but he was presented with a really complicated problem he had to solve very quickly, and he opted to try to move away to get cover. Here's the problem. There's not a lot of cover, at least not in the frame of view of this dash cam. That parking sign's not going to do you any good. The light poles are too far away. It looks like there's light on both sides of the road, because I do advocate sometimes, if nothing else, get to a dark spot where you can't easily be seen. It's harder to shoot at something you can't see. In this case, other than maybe trying to get behind his own cruiser, which I think would have been difficult because this guy was already on his way out of the car, so I think it was a poop sandwich and he did his best with it. Yeah,
and he went and got to cover behind the car here, and I think that was the closest piece of cover that he had, right? And again, in real gunfights, concealment works about 99% as well as cover. If they can't see you, they won't shoot you generally. The couple things you want to think about here, though, is that cover is only going to be good. That concealment's only going to be good for a short period of time. Now, most of the time we would expect here this guy to run off. And almost always with officers, as soon as they're able, they're trying to get away from the cops, and so they'll break contact. But of course, the one you got to worry about is exactly the one that we have here, and that's the one who decides he's a predator and he wants to get in and after you, and that takes a special amount of emotional fitness to win.
Yeah, there's, you know, a lot of cops have nightmares about they call it the zombie dream, where you're faced with a real good crook, a good bad guy who's shooting at you or assaulting you or shooting your partner, and you're shooting them and they won't go down. This isn't exactly that, but this is pretty unusual for a bad guy to be so determined to disable or kill an officer that he gets out of the car and chases you around the car. But unfortunately, we're seeing more and more of that. If that's the case, I need you, the officer, to promise me that you're going to have a soundtrack going in your head that is, stay in the fight, get up. This guy's not going to kill me, not today, I'm going to survive this, because your mindset is probably at least half of the equation when it comes to surviving something like this, having a survival mindset. So do me a favor, promise me you're going to say those words in your head and not let this crook take you out that day, because you're frankly, you're prepared for this. You have practiced violence. You have you have body armor to protect your vital organs. You need to get in there and at least protect yourself and hopefully take this bad guy out before he hurts somebody else.
Well, and he's already taken a couple of shots at the officer, so he's absolutely trying to kill you. There's no question about that. You need to get your gun out and in the fight quickly. Now here is where I'm almost certain the officer gets shot twice, 1 and 2. And so you want to get your gun out quick. Officers, hear me, even from those compromised positions, I'd recommend work a little bit of dry fire, getting your gun out from a weird spot, from down on a knee, from all fours, from places where you don't expect. And one of the big things that we see here is he finally gets a shot off, and when he does, he's in that kind of roll over prone position that we jokingly call it fat guy prone when he finally gets a shot off here. And so that injured officer protocol, the shooting from one side, the shooting one-handed because he's shot in the left arm, those things, officers, hear me, you have to practice those. You don't want the first time that you're doing this, it to be novel and being in the middle of a gunfight. Get this on your square range so at least you know how it feels when you're doing it.
Yeah, most agencies, and I haven't worked with in a marked unit for a long time, but when I did, a lot of the Fords, they had a master key that all the deputies or officers had, and they could just quickly lock the door behind them, leave the car running so all the equipment stays on, the computer, the lights, etc. Yeah, make sure that it's one of those things you're practicing, like your marksmanship, like your DT, like your reloads. Practice, make sure every time you get out of the car, no matter what the call is, you lock that door behind you. Because like John said, you don't want to be the guy who's responsible now, after being shot, for having this guy ram somebody with your car. Or, God forbid, figure out how to get your long gun or shotgun into a fight and fight with other cops. It's just a mess, and you don't want any part of it.
Yeah, and I think that's really difficult. Now, of course, the perp is going to then use this as an opportunity to steal the patrol cruiser and then go off. Now, of course, what guns has he got in that patrol cruiser? I don't know. What havoc is he going to reap in the community? I don't know. But I think this is a good reason that we always tell officers, this is why you want to lock your cruiser. This is why you want to keep, from just winging the door open and leaving it open, because this is kind of the worst case scenario. So this is why I say med kit on your person for law enforcement officers and for private citizens. And of course, we sell them through Mountain Man Medical, and all the proceeds of those go to charity. So if you want to buy one through Mountain Man, there's a link in the description, but just get one otherwise, okay? Even if you feel like, no, I don't want to buy that one, buy one. This is the reason here that you don't want to leave your car unlocked, because God forbid something evil like this happens and somebody uses your car and you feel a sense of moral responsibility. Of course, legally, and I think morally too, he's responsible for what he's done. But you might feel like, gosh, man, I could have just locked my car and this wouldn't have happened. I will say, I think this officer is a warrior. He shot twice, stayed in the fight, hit this guy with, I think, 5 or 6 rounds. And that's absolutely 100% commendable. I think he did a really great job. So don't hear this last bit about locking your car as a huge, critique of his behavior. It's a little tiny thing as a reminder in a policy thing. I think this officer is a warrior. I think he did what he had to do, and in the end, he covered his asp.